channel. I have decided to start a new series where I talk about a few of my favorite artists, their lifetime, their life story, and their artworks, and doing some analysis just for fun this summer. So the first artist that we have today is Louise Bourgeois, and so we'll start off with going through about her life and then going through some of her major themes and artworks and sort of making connection between those two. And I have some references and research that I've done on the artworks, but then I also have some personal interpretations. So Bourgeois' work is intertwined with her life and experiences, and it's something really important that we have to keep in mind throughout the whole analysis. Yeah, a lot of her artworks were really inspired by her childhood trauma and experiences, and as I've done research for someone else's quote, frank examinations of female sexuality, as she will do a lot of sculptures of body parts and combining like the two different sexes, and the artworks have a really androgynous nature to them. Important motifs that she uses are, as I've mentioned, body parts and sometimes houses and cages. And there's a collection called Cells, which is the first artwork that I'll be talking about later, and spiders. So spiders is one of the most famous motifs that she uses. And you can find a lot of great, much better resources on the internet than comparing to me talking about it. And what I found really interesting is after I've done research on her life story and artworks and themes that she uses, I found a lot of similarities between my own body of work and hers, which is why she's the first artist that I want to talk about. So here's a little timeline that I made myself. I will be linking all of the materials that I've used in the description so you can see where I drew my references from. She was born in 1911, just before World War I, in Paris. And she's had a bit of mommy and daddy issues. She had also like two other siblings, I think. And they have like a tutor that teaches them in school who is a female, who is her father's mistress. And she is not mad about the tutor because she's a mistress to her parents, but because she is apparently in love with her father, which we will get to later on. In 1932, her mother died, and she went on to study maths, apparently, after she finished her philosophy laureate. And she was looking at her education, was a very intelligent young woman. Who was good at numerous different things, which I think is one of the really strong reasons why a lot of depth in her artworks that she tries to explore, but then she also was able to like back herself up with whatever that she was making because she was really smart. It was not just someone who made up a bunch of stuff, which is what sets people apart. So after she did study some maths, she decided that she also wanted to make art. And she took a bunch of classes in which she encountered a professor or lecturer called Fernand Leger. I have no idea if that's how to pronounce it, so please correct me if I'm wrong. I do know Louise Bourgeois is the way you pronounce her name though, because it's French. So he encouraged her to try more 3D artworks rather than 2D and really open her mind up because why do you have to work on a flat surface when you can do whatever you want? And I think this is a really important concept that I found that inspired a lot of other artists that I will explore in my further episodes and then I will talk about later. And in 1938, she met an art historian who was American, I think, called Robert Goldwater, and Apparently, according to some sources, they just started talking about the art movements and art scene at the time and decided that they were doing well along each other and decided to get married. And this is when she moved to New York City and had children. And I think getting married is also an interesting experience that a lot of female artists experience, because it does, to some extent, change the trajectory of their career, because a lot of the times that their male counterparts would bring them further into the art world and industry, making them slightly more successful as they compared to if they didn't meet and the artists have to work on their own. Because in the early 20th century, if you look at the art scenes, modern art scenes like expressionism and pop art, it's really, or even Bauhaus, I think it's really male-based art world where the only female artist that takes part is because they're married to one of the male artists and was brought into the scene. And I thought I would just bring that up there. So in 1945, which is post-World War II, it is really when the popular art scene and culture moved from the center of Paris to New York City in America. And the first really important art movement that blossomed in New York City was the abstract expressionism art movement, which you probably know from the name of Jackson Pollock. And I will be talking about other female artists at the time who were also important and contributed to the scene and the art movement later on in the episodes, because yes, Jackson Pollock was a pioneer. Okay, but there's women that worked behind him that were just as great, but no one's ever heard about, which is very upsetting to me. So here's on the screen, there's also a few other names that you probably heard of. And Bourgeois' husband brought her into the art scene so she would be more inspired to different kinds of methods and ways of creation. In 1951, her father passed away, and I think she was really devastated. Not only because of the paternal connection, but also because she had special feelings for him. And so she retreated from the New York art scene and decided to create artworks in her own time, but she never stopped working until the day she passed away, which is in 2010. And I cannot believe we were alive at the same time for 5 years on Mother Earth. And in 1982 is when she was getting much more recognized, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York, MoMA, hosted a retrospective for her body of work at the age of 70 for her. And by 1993, she finally reached global recognition when she was alive, which is impressive. Okay, so there's a few important life events that I've mentioned in previous minutes, and some quotes that I really liked. A quote from her is, "I need to make things. The physical interaction with the medium has a curative effect. I need the physical acting out. I need to have these exist in relation to my body," which is why I think, end quote, which is why I think she later on started to create a lot of large-scale installations and sculptures, such as the spiders, as you may know, and a few other really immersive experiences, which she uses different textures and lighting, and a setting that helps the viewers to be completely immersed into the art experience, rather than having a painting on a flat surface hanging on the wall. Art, which is, I think, a lot of what a lot of modern artists in the beginning of 20th century in the Western society, anyway, that they tried to explore this idea because of how the world wars really changed what everyone thinks about how the world should be, including the art world. Another quote I really like from her is, quote, "I transform hate into love," unquote. I think it's really kind of the core of her body of work because she uses her childhood trauma and the experiences and rather than like destroying herself, she uses this destruction and pain and suffering within her to create something that I wouldn't call beautiful, but definitely something that other people can relate to and feel. I think that's really important. And the theme of family, such as father, mother, and the child, is prevalent in a lot of her work. And something that I learned by watching a lot of like her videos of herself, because she like survived after 2000, there's technology to record her and stuff. You can really sense her energy and that she is a really intelligent woman, but like there's a sense of like anger, frustration, anxiety, and like just enthusiasm inside of this woman's body. And there is a video of her that I would suggest you to watch later on that we'll mention. So yes, I have mentioned her childhood was set in the background of World War I, and because of the dysfunctioning family that she had, she needed art to like help her survive all of the, I guess, pain that she feels inside, which is also a common thread that I've seen in a couple of other artists that I've researched on. And it's very heartbreaking, but yet I think we all have to admit that I don't think art is exclusively about pain and suffering, how we portray that, but it's definitely a really important part of what inspires artists to create. So the first artwork I've chosen is called Cells, created in 1989 because there's like a whole collection that she did. But I chose this one because it's, the silhouette and image is quite well known. At first glance, there's like really a lot of shapes that you see, okay? There's squares and circles, and through some research, the circles that you see over here, they can be seen as eyes or breasts, referencing to sexuality and female figures. And there's a lot of mirrors from different like angles, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. That when you see the artwork in reality, it's an in around artwork, so you get to walk around and see the reflection of the inside of the cage from different angles. An article I've seen on Tits says, quote, it is enclosed within the cage-like structure. The eyes are themselves trapped in a space which offers them for viewing by other eyes, those of the viewers. And I think it's a powerful artwork because the cage is see-through, and it gives you a feeling of almost a prison cell. Although pain is a really important theme in this artwork, I didn't necessarily feel it in a very straightforward way when I first looked at the artwork. But you have to know that I have not seen this artwork in person. An image and the 3D form itself is very different things. So I think color really always plays a big role in determining emotions, and this is very monotone and cool. And so it doesn't give me a feeling of pain, but it gives me a feeling of coldness and just anxiety and slight depression. Bourgeois says herself, the quote underneath my screen here is, quote, each cell deals with a fear. Fear is pain. Each cell deals with the pleasure of the voyeur, the thrill of looking and being looked at. And it almost plays on like a contradiction of our suffering and how much we want to escape it, but sometimes we kind of need it to keep ourselves going. I have to say, even as much as it sounds wrong, because from my own experiences, a lot of the times we tell ourselves to stop hurting ourselves mentally, but we keep doing it because sometimes it just gives us pleasure almost. I think it's a human nature that we just cannot change. I think the interplay of pleasure and pain and how exchangeable these two concepts are is also really important in her artworks. Here's another very long quote that I would like to read out because I think the fact that she has survived and lived for so long gives us a great opportunity to hear her voice and how she sees her artworks, which deserves to be heard rather than from other perspectives. So, quote, "The subject of pain is the business I am in, to give meaning and shape to frustration and suffering. The cells represent different types of pain, the physical, the emotional and psychological, and the mental and intellectual. When does the emotion become physical? And when does the physical become emotional? It's a cycle going around and round. Pain can begin at any point and turn in any direction." And I think unquote, I think the theme of cycle of life and and how we can never escape something is important in her artwork, and a commonality that I also see in my own body of art, because I like history, and the more you read about history, the more you see how humans never stops making the same mistakes that they've made and continues to inflict pain on themselves. And here is a slide of the artwork from 3 different angles. Oh yeah, some other things that I've noticed for the artwork is that all the components are placed on the floor, except the mirror on the top is kind of like a suspended feature, but still as a part of the cage. It shows that the cage is so nailed down, and it's almost like a prison cell, and you can't lift it, you can't open it, you can't get out. And if the viewers place themselves inside, there's no way to escape yourself and other people almost, because there's mirrors everywhere. And that actually makes an interesting connection to one of the other artists that I would like to talk about in future episodes. Her name is Marina Abromović, and she's a performance artist from Serbia, and one of her most recent famous performance art was hosted in MoMA in New York with a table. This is her, and this is the audience, which is just random viewers from New York that walks in MoMA that wants to be a part of the performance art. And there's a desk between them. They sit facing each other and stare into each other's eyes for as long as they can, until one of them changes their facial expression or emotion. And the purpose of that performance art is the viewer is being stared at by everyone in the room. Okay, so other visitors are looking at him or her, and there's cameras, and Marina is looking straight into their eyes, and there is no way for them to escape but inside of themselves. And I think it's almost like a common theme that I see in this sculpture as well. The second one is very interesting visually. It is called Tits, created in 1967, and it's one of the artworks that resembles body parts, which I've mentioned earlier, and it almost appeals to surrealism because of its symmetry and very unreal nature of it, okay? Some say that the 2 breasts that points in different directions, but joints in the middle can point between the past and the future, in which Bourgeois draws on her childhood experiences. And my first impression of this artwork is that it's a really simple and elegant 3D shape, but I'm definitely seeing the body part, but I also think the shape resembles the shape of a bullet head, and a double-headed bullet somehow. And the choice of colors of black and gold is also quite interesting because it's a really abstract take on the natural colors of body parts, but yet you can still that it's there. And because of its simple and abstract nature, it draws to an issue that I want to talk about is, does art need explanations from the artists, or is it simply something that the viewers can draw, that the viewers can look at and draw from their own experiences and interpret it for themselves? Because if this is like open to general public, I think it's just really difficult to understand what message she's trying to convey, and like perhaps even a connection between the child and the mother, as I have read about a psychoanalysis that is about breasts and how it's the first thing that we encounter as children, and its connection between the child and the mother. But to me it seems like a bit of a stretch. But do art, especially modern art, contemporary art, need to have explanations? And I think the answer could be like the both ways work. Like the artists have to have an explanation that backs up their art pieces, but then it's definitely not limited to that one definition. Quote, "There has always been sexual suggestiveness in my work. Sometimes I am totally concerned with female shapes, clusters of breasts like clouds, but often I merge the imagery. Phallic breasts, male and female, active and passive." So I guess what she's trying to suggest here is there's like a combination of the two sexes in her artworks, and it's an interesting take on androgynous objects. And even in this piece, you can say it's a joint of two breasts, but maybe it can even look like testicles, that it's a combination of the active and passive. Another quote is, quote, "I made a drawing of breasts pressed against each other. There was a double attitude to be like a mother and to be liked by a mother." Something to think about. The next artwork is also a metal. I think both the last one, this one are in bronze. It is called Nature Study, created in 1966. It calls to her motif of spirals and conflict between control and freedom, and like the twisting of things. Okay, so there's a very gory reference that she made, that Bourgeois made in one of the interviews. She says she's drawn to spirals and twists. Like this artwork almost makes you think about twisting your laundries and rinsing them. But it's also violent motion of wringing her father's mistress' neck, because I'm pretty sure she hates her because she has special feelings for her father. It's a representation of violence through the twist. But then I saw the woman like coming out, being carried out by a hand, delivering out of this entangled mess. And because of this really like soft and kind of look like intestines, it gives the artwork a flesh-like texture, even though it's metal. And the hand sending the woman out can be seen as a symbol of maternal nurturing and active birthing. However, though, I think this artwork, because of the twisting nature of it, it still gives me a feeling of pain and suffering, and it can show that birth can be about pain and suffering. And it can also show like that, the mother is giving birth to the daughter, in which she will become a mother once again, and sort of the always that we know pain and love relationship that we have with our mothers. And another artwork that highlights her Bourgeois' use of spirals is this piece created in 2005, the year I was born. Okay, this is incredible. And it gives you a more straightforward feeling of the cyclic nature of life because it's literally circles going around and round. And in 1994, Bourgeois explained why spirals were personally significant for her. It's something that I have mentioned before. Also, I'll just read the first part of it. Quote, "The spiral is important to me. It is a twist. As a child, after washing tapestries in the river, I would turn and twist and wring them. Later, I would dream of my father's mistress." But I also think, despite from her personal interpretations of the spiral, I think the spirals here gives you a feeling of infinity, of mystery, and especially the red spirals give you a feeling of violence and passion, because I think in the movie Saw, the horror movie, I haven't watched it, but like, I'm pretty sure the character's eyes are red spirals, which is pretty scary. And looking at this gives me that feeling. So it's fascinating how a simple shape like this and a simple flat color can create a really strong emotion. The next artwork I absolutely love. I was so inspired. It's a poem stitched thread on a canvas. So I will read out the poem to you first, and then we'll get to the other parts. I am afraid of silence. I am afraid of the dark. I am afraid to fall down. I am afraid of insomnia. I am afraid of emptiness. Is something missing? Yes, something is missing and always will be missing. The experience of emptiness. To miss. What are you missing? Nothing. I am imperfect, but I am lacking nothing. Maybe something is missing, but I do not know and therefore do not suffer. Empty stomach, empty house, empty bottle. The falling into a vacuum signals the abandonment of the mother. This piece is called I Am Afraid, created in 2009, the year before her death. And I think it's really just fascinating use of materials. And at the time, or before that, she was working on like using contrasting materials such as soft lead, thread and fabric, steel, and with engravings, and they're hammered to use them more effectively to convey her emotions. And she was known also not for only drawing, making visual compositions, but also writing, recording, and journaling, and using text as a part of her artworks, which is something that apparently my art teacher tells me not to do since I was growing up. But it's like, you can do whatever the heck you want. Yes, they have a point of if you need text and your visual language is not strong enough, but sometimes your visual language is just not strong enough that you need text to support it. And sometimes it's just text that can convey your emotions, that maybe images don't work on every single thing, or it's a different or a better way to convey that emotion. And so another quote that I've read, research is on the subject of Bourgeois' use of painful experiences and personal fears in her work. Curator Brooke Hodge has written, Bourgeois has often remarked that in order to exorcise the painful memories of her past, it is necessary for her to reconstruct them in order to destroy them. The restorative power of the needle and the act of sewing have enabled her to confront her demons. And I think sewing itself is like a really repetitive motion, and I really love mark making and doing repetitive marks because it's a really therapeutic process, and I can only imagine how satisfying this must have been for her. Okay, let's go to the next slide, which I have made some remarks myself. So something else that I've noticed in connection to her life experiences is that her mother was a weaver, and it hugely inspired her spider pieces because of their weaving magical powers. But this artwork can also show the connection of their relationship. And perhaps stitching can be seen as an act of mending the broken past. And the colors of using gray on the beige background of canvas makes writing look as faded. And it's like, a memory, a really faded whisper inside your mind. And all the texts are in capital letters, emphasizing on her voice. In the very beginning, there's 5 lines in which she uses anaphora as I am afraid, and to show the really strong emotional effect on the viewers because she is not afraid to confront her fears. And this I am very inspired by, and I am planning to write a similar poem. And yes, I've mentioned it's a very interesting use of materials and using words to convey her emotions because sometimes things cannot be conveyed visually. Next artwork is called The Destruction of the Father, created in 1974, and you can see the common thread of her relationship with her father and how it always comes back in her artworks. So, according to this article I read by Ben Weaver, it says it looks like a womb-like room, and it's the first piece where Bourgeois uses soft materials on a large scale. It creates a cave-like structure and dramatically lit with red lights. The installation designed to look like the aftermath of a crime, which I do agree with because there's a bed or table fixture in the middle with objects almost deconstructed placed on it, which is kind of scary. It's said by Bourgeois to be inspired by a childhood fantasy in which she imagines a dinner at which her family was tired of hearing her father's boasts and the siblings and the mother experiences his power over them. So my first impressions of the artwork is that the blobs, like these little things, they definitely adds a feeling of disgust and mystery to the artwork, but I feel like they're not big enough. There's still so much black underneath it that has too much contrast to the blobs. Doesn't make it look visually strong enough, so I wish they could have been more scaled up and squished against each other to create a stronger feeling of oppression and disgust. However, the atmosphere is very dreamlike. It's an effective way to portray her fantasy in an abstract way. And really liked her use of lighting, red lighting that's centered towards the middle of the artwork. And this I would like to also make another connection to this Yayoi Kusama's 1965 artwork called Red Stripes, in which she is one of the first people to use soft materials as a really huge installations and using herself as a part of the artwork here. And I can see a similarity of also using soft materials on a large scale. However, you can't say that Bourgeois has seen this or anything, but I just really like the connection here. So here's a video that I would suggest for you guys to watch on YouTube. It's the video of her peeling a tangerine and reimagining a joke that her father would make on dinner tables, which is slightly disgusting, but also interesting to watch. So it also gives you a real feeling of who the artist was in real life. So last thing I would like to talk about is Drawing Intimacy, a collection of artworks that exhibited an exhibition that ended last year, I think end of last year, that has a collection of her artworks from 1939 to 2010, and they're mostly small drawings. From the website of the exhibition, it says most of the works are on paper or made during the last 4 years of Bourgeois' life and often features words or phrases which evoke associations and memories. The interaction of image and text crystallizes the interplay of past and present. And this collection highlights the sensitivity and strength of Bourgeois' artistic vision. Quote, "It is not an image I am seeking. It is not an idea. It is an emotion you want to create, an emotion of wanting, of giving, and of destroying." And I think it's amazing that an artist can straightforwardly say that this artwork I don't care what it means. It's just supposed to portray a feeling that I feel that is important to me. I think that is very brave and something I admire. However, a few notes that I've made to myself is that, well, the medium that she used is watercolor, ink, pencil, and etching on paper, which create really interesting textures and overlays. And I mean, clearly you can be inspired by this and do a collection of little drawings yourself, right? Seems really fun. And does feel therapeutic. And I think, yeah, the use of color is always important when conveying emotions. And this collection shows that she never stopped working until she passed away. And even if it means working in a different medium that she didn't work in before, and that art is how she lives and keeps her going. I think these are beautiful imageries that do not need meanings pinned to them, and viewers simply need to feel them. So that is all the artworks that I would like to talk about today. The themes, in conclusion, the themes that are very prominent in her artworks are love, suffering. I don't think we have a piece about death included here. The theme of undo and redo, reliving her past, using art to reassemble and destroy her pain, a fear of abandonment, her childhood, and the cycle of life. And the last bit, I have made a note to myself. I will just read. She transforms and translates her pain and destruction into art that inspires others, including me, to feel the suffering and yet see their worth. How suffering is a human condition everyone experiences, and through destruction, there is creation. This is one of my top reasons why I love creating and viewing art, because it can portray ugly things in almost a beautiful way. For my childhood always be my inspirations because of its joy, bittersweet, and pain, which is why I just feel a lot of connection to her works and herself. So thank you so much for listening. I think this will be a really long video, and I will see you on the next video about another artist. Bye!